So I got this feedback from one of you who has been watching my videos. I got this about 3 weeks ago or thereabout, and it felt so good, to read this. I mean, positive feedbacks like this are highly underrated, seriously. But so I thought I'll just share this with you guys. So I'll just read it from my other phone, and it says, "Hi, I just wanted to thank you. It really helped me watching your videos to calm down my nerves. I had my mental health interview for a Band 5 today. It was surrounding the core values. The questions were, tell me a time when you delivered respect to either a patient or colleague when it was difficult. The second question was, tell me a time when you delivered high quality care and implemented something new. The third question was, tell me a time when you've had to delegate. That's a good one. And the fourth question was, tell me a time when you've received feedback and how you've implemented it." So this interview was at, I'm going to block out the NHS Trust. Also, you telling us about the motive behind the questions really helped, and also using the STAR method. I did not like the STEAT method personally, but some may prefer it or use a combination of both. Kind regards, his name. I read this. It's either he or her. I'm not quite sure. When I read this, I was happy, and that's why I wanted to share this with you guys today. So, my dear friends, today's video is based entirely on this beautiful feedback. Today, I will be answering all the 4 questions that this beautiful subscriber of mine shared with me for their mental health interview. And I'm sure it will greatly benefit mental health professionals as well as other professionals alike, really, other medical professionals. Because it does cut across the board, and quite frankly, it can very easily apply to any medical professional. Okay, so stay locked in. And if you're new here, my name is Rajuno. I'm a Nigerian sonographer who is based and working in the UK as a UK practicing sonographer. And in the last few years, I have derived great joy in sharing NHS interview questions and answers to help you ace your NHS interview as well as your healthcare interview in flying colors. So to both my new and to my returning subscribers and watchers, I say a very warm welcome to you as you proceed with this video. And just in case you're not aware and you want to go even deeper, I've put together an ebook here, which is Smash Your NHS Healthcare Interview. 50 questions, 100 answers, which means that for every question you have 2 answers. So my ebook is packed with structured answers, with tips, and with strategies to help you stand out. So I'll drop the link in my description. Okay. All right. So let's get started. Number 1. Tell me a time when you have delivered respect to either a patient or colleague when it was difficult. Now, there are very many reasons why an interviewer may be asking you a question like this. Sometimes it's just to explore if you actually uphold the NHS values, which can vary from caring to kindness to compassion to inclusive to respectful, all of these things. An interviewer may just want to explore if you actually uphold these values under pressure. They could also be asking you these questions because they want to check how you stay professional and calm in conflict or in emotionally charged situations. Sometimes they just want to know if you will be able to show resilience and self-awareness rather than reacting defensively when there is a conflict. Sometimes they just want to check your conflict resolution skills and your de-escalation skills. Because some people, when there's conflict, they are escalating. You should not be escalating, especially as a medical professional. You should be de-escalating. When you come and meet conflict, from the moment you step in, the conflict should be dying down, not getting worse. Okay? And sometimes interviewers will ask you a question like this because they want to judge that skill of yours. In fact, in short, they just want to check that in the toughest of situations, you're able to remain respectful and remain professional. Okay, so this is one way you can answer this using the STAR method. Again, the question is, tell me a time when you have delivered respect to a patient or colleague, even when it was difficult. So, while working in the mental health ward, I supported a patient who had become very, very distressed and verbally aggressive towards staff during an assessment. I knew in that moment that my responsibility was to try my best to de-escalate the situation while ensuring that the patient still felt respected and safe. So again, in that moment, I reminded myself that their behavior at that point in time was very likely linked to their mental health difficulties rather than a personal attack to us, the staff. So what I did was I stayed calm. I made sure that I lowered my voice and the tone of my voice was a lot more friendly and welcoming. I allowed them some space as well, and I did my best to reassure the patient that I was there to help, nothing more. I'm only here because I want to help you and not to judge you. So over time, over a short period of time, when the patient had noticed my demeanor and saw that I wasn't coming on aggressively, I wasn't coming on like I was going to attack them, they gradually calmed down. And by the time they gradually settled, we were able to continue with the assessment of the patient safely. Now, by maintaining my respect for that patient, I was able to build trust with the patient. I was able to reduce the conflict, which later helped their engagement in care. For me, the entire experience just reinforced the importance of respect, even in difficult moments, even when it feels like the patient is personally attacking you. It's important that we as professionals detach from that mentality and understand or recognize that sometimes they are going through very difficult times and it's not necessarily an attack to us. So just by maintaining a respect for that patient and making sure that they did not feel any less than they should, the patient was able to gain more confidence in my ability to help them. The patient was able to, calm down a lot more, settle quite nicely, and it was easier to help them. So I did learn the importance of respect for my patient, even in very difficult situations. Okay, so that's one way to answer that question, and I'm going to be moving on to number 2. Now, number 2 question says, tell me a time when you have delivered high quality care and implemented something new. Again, interviewers could ask this question for many different reasons, and some of the reasons could be that they just want to test your commitment to excellence. They want to see if you will just go beyond the basics and actively look for ways to improve care within your level of expertise. Other times, they might want to just gauge your innovation and your initiative. And that's because healthcare consistently evolves. It's always evolving constantly, right? They want to see evidence that you're able to recognize gaps in care, to be able to introduce new ideas, whether it's big or small, it doesn't matter. They just want to check if you're able to introduce new ideas and make a positive change. Sometimes they could be asking this question because they want to assess your patient-centered thinking. While you're working, are you thinking about the patient actively as your priority, or is it all about you? Even the ideas that you bring, are they grounded in enhancing safety and the dignity of your patients, or again, it's all about you? Also, they might just want to check your problem-solving ability. They want to check, are you able to identify a challenge? Are you able to think critically? And are you able to come up with a solution and implement that solution? So that could be one of the reasons why they're asking you this. Another reason why they could be asking you this question could be to measure your impact. To see if the last idea that you had, wherever it is that you work, if it had a lasting benefit, to put the patients, to service users, to staff as well. Okay, so now that we know the different reasons why they could ask you a question like this, we're going to go right ahead and give a sample answer to a question like this. Again, the question was, tell me a time when you have delivered high quality care and you have implemented something new. Again, I'll be using the STAR method to answer this. Okay, so let's go. When I was working on an inpatient mental health ward, I noticed that patients usually would become more anxious in the evenings when the staffing levels were lower. So I felt like my responsibility at that time was to find a way to improve their well-being during this high anxiety time. So what I did was I discussed this issue with a colleague, and I suggested that we try to run an evening relaxation group. So I researched it, and then I planned some, mindfulness and breathing activities, and did my best to facilitate the sessions in a very calm and supportive way. So we're able to put this together, working as a team and creating this thing that we hope would be beneficial for our patients who felt quite anxious in the evenings. So over time, what happened was our patients started reporting feeling a lot calmer, before bedtime. And amongst my colleagues and amongst other staff, they reported that they had observed fewer incidents of restlessness amongst the patients. The ward manager was very impressed with what we did and later incorporated the session into the regular activity schedule. So for me, all of this just showed me how small innovations, like it doesn't have to be so big, small innovations, which was developed from listening to our patients, can improve both the quality of care that we deliver to these patients as well as the ward environment, because it just changed the dynamic of the environment and made it a whole lot more calm and inviting, and our patients just felt, better being in that environment in the evening. So yeah, this experience did teach me the importance of listening to our patients and the fact that innovation, no matter how little, can actually drive positive change. Okay, so that's one way to answer that question. Okay, so we're going to move on to the third question. However, before we do that, if you've come this far in my video, thank you so much. And this is the perfect time to remind you that if you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please do so. It highly motivates me to keep doing this. So subscribe and click on the notification bell, so every time I drop a video, you get a notification that I've dropped it and you can watch it. Now remember to also like this video, to share this video, and to drop your comments below, because whenever you do that, it helps the algorithm to push this to more and more people who need this information. Okay, all right, so let's get to the video. Number 3. This is a very straightforward question, which is, tell me a time when you have had to delegate. So just like the other question, there are many reasons why an interviewer may want to ask you a question like this. And sometimes it could just be to assess your leadership potential. So whether or not you're applying for a senior role, there will be times even in your junior role where you have to delegate tasks, where you have to show some level of leadership potential. So they'd ask you a question like this because they want to assess that, assess whether you realize that delegation is about sharing tasks, for safe and effective care. So are you able to, step up and guide others appropriately when the need arises? They may also want to check your judgment skills and your prioritization skills when they ask you a question like this. So delegation also means knowing which task that you can safely hand over. It also involves knowing who is best placed to do them. So you have the sense, I'm about to hand over this. Is this person able to handle this when I hand it over to them or not? And the things you know to do by yourself, which you cannot give to another person. So delegation does involve that, and they might ask you a question like this because they want to check your judgment and your prioritization skills. Now, another reason why they could ask a question like this would be to evaluate your team working skills. Because delegation is not just about sending out tasks, it's also about trust, it's also about respect, it's also about clear communication all within a team. So they ask you a question like this, they want to be able to evaluate your ability to work well within a team. Another reason why they could ask you, about delegation could be to ensure patient safety. So they want their patients to be safe. And so they want to know if by hiring you, you'd be able to also uphold that as well. And that's because poor delegation can actually compromise care. No two ways about it. If you're unable to delegate, or you don't know who you're delegating to, or you just do things carelessly, you're compromising care to the end user, who's the patient. So they want reassurance that you understand accountability and you will not pass on tasks without ensuring that they are done correctly. A question on delegation could also be to assess your confidence and your professionalism. So it will also show whether you're comfortable with taking up responsibility, whether you're comfortable with supporting other colleagues and managing workloads, in maybe busy or pressured environments. Okay. All right. So now that we know the different reasons why they could ask you a question about delegation, I'll just go right ahead and give you a sample answer, one way that you can answer a question like this. And again, the question says, tell me a time of when you have had to delegate. So, during a very busy evening shift, a new patient was admitted who needed an urgent care plan review, while other patients still needed medication and support with meals. I had the responsibility of making sure that all the patients received the right care without delay, which meant that I had to delegate effectively. So what I did was I allocated the medication round to one staff member. And then I asked another staff member to assist with the meals, while I personally worked with the nurse to complete the patient's care plan. So when I was delegating these responsibilities, I made sure to give very clear instructions. And from time to time, I made sure to also check in with each colleague to ensure that they had the support that they needed, and I told them if they encountered any difficulties, they should come right back to me, and then we'll figure it out and try to come up with a solution. So in the end, the shift ran quite smoothly. The new patient was very safely admitted and no patient's needs were missed. So by being able to delegate and do so efficiently, it allowed the team to work a lot faster, And for me, it reinforced the importance of trust and good communication. Okay, so that's one way that you can answer that question on delegation of tasks. There are many other ways to answer them, but that's one way. And I've got similar questions to this, a lot of similar questions to this. In my ebook, I put that together. You can get it, and you should have more of similar kind of questions on there. Okay, all right. So number 4. Tell me a time when you've received feedback and implemented it. Again, interviewers can ask you this question for multiple reasons, okay? Sometimes they can ask you a question like this because they want to test your openness to learning. It's not everybody that can collect feedback or can learn from a situation. Some people are very stuck up in their ways. And so an interviewer may want to actually check this with you. They want to see if you're able to accept constructive criticism without necessarily becoming too defensive, because not everybody can accept constructive criticism. Okay. And sometimes they can ask you a question like this to check your mindset. Do you have a growth mindset? That's because any good professional knows that you normally would take feedback that is given to you to improve your practice and to develop professionally. Again, sometimes they could be asking you a question like this because they want to assess your adaptability. Are you able to reflect? Are you able to adjust your approach? And are you able to actually demonstrate a measurable improvement after you've received feedback? An interviewer may want to know all of these things, right? Okay. They may also want to gauge your self-awareness when they ask you a question like this. Now, recognizing areas for development is just as important as recognizing your strengths. So if you're unable to have the self-awareness enough to actually, recognize the areas within you that need some level of self-development and the areas within you that, that you consider a strength of yours, then you might not be able to be very receiving or very open to receiving feedback. And so they want to check and be sure for themselves. And sometimes it's as simple as just knowing if the qualities that you have actually align with the NHS values, because most of the NHS values, your ability to receive feedback will allow, NHS values like being respectful or being ambitious or being inclusive to shine through. So are you able to receive feedback? Because if you are, it does tell them that this aligns quite nicely with the NHS values that they embody. So in short, they want to check if you're coachable, if you reflect, and if you're committed to continuous improvement, because that's the only way that safe, high quality care is sustained. So I will be answering this question using the STAR method. And just to remind you, the question says, tell me a time when you have received feedback and you've implemented it. Okay. One time I was being supervised by my manager, and she highlighted to me that even though my clinical notes were very, very thorough, they were sometimes too detailed, which made it harder for colleagues to find key information as quickly as possible. So in that moment, what was expected of me was to adapt my documentation style to be a bit clearer and more concise while still maintaining accuracy. So what I did was, when she gave me the feedback, I thanked her for that feedback because I felt like it was very valuable feedback. So I did ask her to give me like examples of best practices that I can learn from. She did that. So having looked through all of those, I got a lot of tips and tricks from that. And so eventually I started using bullet points. I started using clearer headings, and I started using shorter sentences in my notes, albeit accurate. So they were accurate, but just a lot shorter and clearer. I also made sure that I reviewed my entries after writing them to check that the most important details were there and that they were easy to see. So I did this over a period of time, and after a couple of weeks, my colleagues started commenting to me that my notes were a lot easier to follow during handovers and during care planning. And that was very nice feedback for me to hear, because it just meant that I had used what I was told and I had implemented it. And overall, it just taught me, in fact, the entire experience just taught me the importance of being given constructive feedback and receiving constructive feedback. It taught me that it's really important that whenever I'm given constructive feedback, I don't just see it as negative criticism. Rather, it makes more sense that I see it as an opportunity to improve both my practice and the team's efficiency. And so all in all, my take home from this was the fact that constructive feedback definitely drives positive change, especially in a healthcare environment. Okay, so that's it. That's one way that you can answer that question. So I've also got a variant of this question in my ebook as well. I think in my ebook it says, how would you handle negative feedback in practice? So that's another way that a question on feedback can be asked. And I've got two answers on there, two examples of answers on there that you can go through, which would help you prepare for your interview. So if you're serious about smashing that interview, do not sleep on this ebook. I mean, in my ebook, I've got behavioral questions, I've got competency-based questions, I've got scenario-based questions on there, as well as motivation or interest-based questions. So there's a lot for you to gain by actually getting this ebook, regardless of whatever health professional that you are. So get it. The link is in my description box below. Okay. And just overall, if your interviews actually leave you overthinking, second guessing yourself, or just feeling stuck, I can help you. I do offer one-on-one interview coaching preparation sessions, which are tailored to you specifically, to your role specifically. I can also help you to improve your tone, your delivery, your mindset. I'll be practicing mock interview questions with you. I'll be giving you feedback as you respond to those. So if that interests you in any way, I will also be dropping the link in my description box. Do well to follow that. Drop me an email. I'll be dropping my email there as well. Okay, so there you have it. I hope that these answers were helpful to you. And please remember that there's so many people out there like you who need information like what I just shared in this video. So by liking, by sharing, by commenting, and by subscribing and turning on the notification bell, it does help the algorithm to get this to more and more people out there. And that's very, very beneficial for all those who need it. So thank you so much as you like, share, and subscribe. All right, I'll see you in my next video. Thank you. Bye.